Welcome to Zoom In, Zoom Out, your global look at news from Taiwan. I'm Isabel Wang. The Hanguang exercise has been Taiwan's largest annual military drill since 1984. This year, things look a little bit different, both in large scale and also in its duration. The drill has been doubled from 5 to 10 days, and also for the first time incorporating nationwide civil resilience training, including sheltering in shopping malls and also supermarkets. So, is Taiwan ready for a potential Chinese invasion? And what does it mean to have this year's drills to boost our national defense strategies? To answer these questions, we're joined by Dr. Alexander Huang, who's the chairman of the Council of Strategic and Wargaming Studies, to discuss this year's Hanguang exercise and Taiwan's current defense readiness. Dr. Huang, welcome to the show.
It's good to be on the show.
So my first question is that this year's Hanguang exercise, there are a lot of differences, right? And also there are several new weapons coming out in the exercise as well. So what's your take on the differences of this year's exercise?
In the military modernization, we have always said, the state of the military exercises has always been a high-low mix or a combination of existing system and newly incoming systems. This year, we will witness a extended Hanguang joint military exercise, extended from 5 days, 4 nights to 10 days, 9 nights. I believe that this is encouraged by our allies and also is based on our self-awareness about the potential military conflict across the Taiwan Strait. I have been a long advocate for a real-time, more realistic military drills to familiarize our population, that to get used to a possible future difficulties, because Taiwan has been away from a real war for 67 years. So we need to do our own preparation to get people used to a possible future military conflict.
So with the urban resilience training this time, it's more like a bottom-up strategies, right? Do you think the Taiwanese people are, how has it been like? Are they used to this already? Or like if the possible invasion happened, are we ready?
For international viewers, they may have some perception through the reports of different news outlets that's stationed in Taiwan. But I would encourage our friends in the international arena, come visit and take your own perspective and see how dangerous, how nervous the society in Taiwan right now. But I would say that if we are in full alert, if people are ready, then we don't need to do all these drills. I think this is our current mission, to know or to introduce to our general public that modern warfare is different from what we have known before. And there might be collateral damage once a war is started. And people should understand that Taiwan is a highly populated island, and the military barracks, air and naval stations and bases are surrounded by a lot of residential areas. So it's very hard to differentiate military installations and the civilian centers, and that's why we need to do this practice.
I know that recently you engaged in the Tabletop event. What are the biggest takeaway, or like what are the things that surprised you the most or you didn't imagine of happening?
My major takeaway is that our military commanders and decision makers probably needs more practice and education, because they are still more or less stay with a scenario that was 10, 15 years ago, and has not learned too much from the war in Ukraine or Gaza. And so that's why we hosted this tabletop exercise and inviting renowned generals and admirals. And especially we opened to the press. So this is the first time that the Taiwan population can watch a highly sensitive military operational war games, from their own eyes. This is purely a public education exercise, and I think we have achieved that goal.
So back to the topic on Hanguang exercise. This year specifically, we're separated into 3 different phases with gray zone activity focused on the first one. So why do you think it's being placed in the first?
The gray zone coercion was also phase 1 in my tabletop exercise. The reason is fairly easy and simple because China has been conducting gray zone coercion against Taiwan for almost 4 years, ever since the visit of the United States House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. China had started this what we call joint combat readiness patrol encircling Taiwan, and it has been normalized, and almost every week that we will see the incursions of Chinese naval and air assets, and sometimes including Chinese Coast Guard and the maritime militia against the restricted air space or water area. And so that's why it is a must for Taiwan people to practice how to respond to a gray zone coercion.
What about the other phases?
As we move on in either Hanguang exercise or my own tabletop, we put more elements into the game and more forces and more items to practice. Following the gray zone activities, we started to practice the quarantine, which means maritime quarantine against shipments into Taiwan. And then another step up is the partial blockade of shipping. We try not to disrupt the civilian aviation because it will touch, the international regulations. Of course, as we move on, there will be involvement of encirclement or assault against the offshore islands near Taiwan. And in the last phase, we have a full-scale military assault against Taiwan, and including amphibious landing.
Because now we're like a minority government, and then there's a lot of debate going on the budget issue in the Legislature, especially for defense budget. So it has been frozen, and then they're like talking about, for example, like the U.S. They want Taiwan to raise defense budget to around like 5%. I think Taiwan currently we're around between 2 to 3%, right? Yeah. So what do you think is is this a visible number? Like 5% for Taiwan?
I think for fiscal year 2025, Taiwan's defense budget is accounted for 2.45% of our GDP. And both opposition and the ruling party had expressed that they support the increase of defense budget in fiscal year 2026 and most likely up to 3% of the GDP. For our international viewers, I have to remind everyone that our total annual government spending is only accounted for 12% of our GDP. So if we raise the defense budget to 3%, that's already 1/4 of the total government spending. In other words, the government needs to make a compromise and spend less on social welfare, pension reform, and other, critical spendings that may affect their votes. So because we are a democracy, we cannot do it by imposing a dictatorial measures and forcing people to accept a budget level on defense. So we are now in the phase that we try to communicate with our population, to talk to our, general public and say, there is a potential danger of military conflict in the Taiwan Strait. By adding up, defense spending, it doesn't mean that we will definitely get into a war, but showing our will, serving as a deterrent, and showing to the potential adversary that we are determined to defend ourselves. And another, little note to our friends in international community is that Taiwan's parliament or Congress is different from yours. Taiwan's members of parliament can only do two things, two powers. One is to cut the budget. Second is to freeze the budget and really defreeze that later. So to negotiate between the legislative branch and the executive branch, our international friend needs to understand that if the executive branch refuses to communicate or negotiate, then the parliamentarians can only cut or freeze their budget to force them to compromise on certain items. So a best way to deal with this is that before the Ministry of Defense complete their budget book, talk to the opposition, because right now the opposition is the majority in the parliament. So if you include the opposition's view or priorities in your budget book, then you won't have a problem. But if you refuse to accept, the opposition's defense budget increase proposal, then there will be a cut or freeze. I don't think Taiwan is in the time to have a gridlock on this defense budget. And we want to show our good image to the international community. Both parties, or all the parties, wanted to increase the budget, but you cannot say that the defense ministry's budget book is untouchable. You have to negotiate first before you complete your proposal.
For local politics, we know that there are a recall campaign going on, and then there will be a vote.
Right.
So what do you think after that it's going to change?
I think for our friends overseas, because the KMT enjoys a thin majority. After the recall campaign, even if KMT lost in the recall, the DPP will become a thin majority as well. So the numbers of members will be very close. We are in a democracy. It doesn't mean that you have to have a full control of all the branches of the government to roll out your policy. In a democracy, if the governing party is a minority in the executive branch, you negotiate, you consult, you make compromise. You cannot say, I do not. In democracy, it is not right, especially in domestic politics, to say it's either my way or the highway. Politics is a game of compromising in every democracy.
Thank you for watching this episode of Zoom In, Zoom Out. If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit like, share, or subscribe, or even leave a comment below. Hope you enjoy the show. We'll see you next time.